Hello, everybody. Jan Rutherford here with Self-Reliant Leadership. Hope you are doing great. Welcome to this broadcast, a special workshop that we're experimenting with. And the big question that we're going to address today is, what should I do with my career? And in the meantime, I would love to hear who's joined us today. So if you could, in the comment section, just let us know where you're calling in from. That would be great. There is a little bit of delay between when you post and when you hear me. I think we're on a 30-second delay, something like that. But I'm interested in where you're from and where you're calling in from, and I'll be monitoring that as we get going. But I'm going to go ahead and get us started right away. As I mentioned, this session is all about what should I do with my career, and we're going to tackle that very topic. So as we get going here, a couple housekeeping items. I'm going to cover some ground rules. We're going to talk about time. We're going to talk about positivity, autonomy, purpose, mastery, and post-work. And the important thing to remember here is, in your career, wherever you're at, is what got you here won't get you there. Much of the time I spend executive coaching is helping people understand a lot of the skills and attributes that got them to a certain level, a certain promotion, are things that don't serve them as well. And they've got to basically take some strengths and throttle those back. We're not necessarily working on fixing weaknesses. It's really adapting to new roles and new responsibilities. So as you go through, keep in mind what got you here might not get you to the next level. And again, looking forward to hearing where you all are dialing in from. So if you could put that in the comments, that would be fantastic. All right, so here we go. Some of the ground rules. One, love for you to ask questions. So put those in the comments. Participate and build on the comments of others. Provide some insight. Be kind and inclusive. And hold your assumptions lightly. So what got shared with me in an interview recently with a guest on our podcast, the Leadership Podcast, was this whole concept of liminal space. And it was really that place between no longer and not yet. And it was used in the context of the pandemic. Hey, it's no longer 2019. We don't know what the future holds. Same thing applies to our careers. What we've done in the past is no longer. What we are going to do in the future is not yet. I have yet to meet a person who's not in some form of transition from one area to another. And part of that is keeping an open mind, being intentional, being opportunistic, and being purposeful. So let's move from that over to some of the things that we absolutely control in our career. And that is where we spend our time and how we respond to our environment. We absolutely control that. We can influence other people, but of course we don't control them. And what we need to avoid is the area of concern where we can't control and we can't influence. That's a time suck. It just takes us in and takes us away from things that are going to move us in the right direction and onto our trajectory. So as you look at this, one thing I'd be interested in is, questions I often ask, people I'm coaching. And I'm going back and forth between two screens, so my apologies for taking my eyes off the camera. But one of the questions is, what did I intend to do but I didn't do with regard to my career? What do you wish you had more time to do? If you could put those in the comments, I would love to hear what you wish you had more time to do. The third is, what part of your responsibilities might you be avoiding right now or pursuing opportunities? And what are things that you'd like to stop doing or delegate to someone else? Those are really, really important questions that really are centered on the fact that there are things that we control. We don't have to play victim. And oftentimes with people that are wondering if they should leave, they're their current role, their current organization, I always ask, three things. Are you willing to just suck it up and stay there? Are you willing to make the changes and try to affect change in the organization, the change you seek? And then if you feel the values just don't align, are you willing to leave? And we always have those three choices. We stay and we deal with it, we try to change it, or we put ourselves in a different environment. So again, but I think we always have to look inward and say, hey, what's our personal responsibility here? So the next thing I wanted to cover was, and you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put these in the chat so that everybody has these. Here we go. And those are those 4 questions. I'm putting those in the chat right now. Okay. And that might be some work to do post work. The other thing I wanted to cover with you is somebody we interviewed who we had the great privilege of interviewing, a fellow by the name of Kim Cameron. And he is a professor at the Ross School of Business, University of Michigan. And he is all about positivity in culture in the workforce. And he uses this phrase that I just love called positively deviant. And one of the things that he does when he interviews people, besides whether they're qualified or not, he's looking for these 4 things. And I'm going to go ahead and post those in the chat as well. Tell me about a time when you helped somebody reach their potential. What'd you do? What'd you learn? Tell me about a job you fell in love with. What'd you do? What'd you learn? Tell me about an organization you fell in love with. What did you do? What did you learn? And the last question he asks is what's the best thing you did for someone today? And you think about it. This is our responsibility, to find an environment where we can, we can help people, we can serve, we're in love with the job, we respect and trust the organization and the people that we're with. One of the things I wanted to play for you here, people say, it's the organization's responsibility to provide the purpose. And I think that's true. But I also think there's a personal responsibility to find the noble purpose in our work. This is a guy named Dave. Dave works at Hertz. He drives a courtesy bus from the airport to the rental car facility. I got on his bus recently and he said, "Hi, I'm Dave. You're on the number 1 bus. I've been doing this since 1978. Yes, that's 43 years. I love my job. If you have a question, I can answer it. I'm going to make this 5-minute drive really enjoyable. And I'm going to play some music for you." And you know what? I realized that the guy didn't think of himself as a driver that just drives back and forth 5 minutes. He thought of himself as, hey, these are weary travelers. Their whole experience has probably been terrible. They've gotten off a plane. They're about to get in a car and drive. I'm going to just do a little bit to cheer them up. And you know what? I've had Dave twice at this particular airport. And both times he made my day. He didn't think of himself as a courtesy driver. He thought of himself as somebody that facilitates journeys, that helps people. I think that's a little bit of our responsibility when we are looking for careers. How is it that we want to serve and make other people's lives better? Going back to what Kim Cameron said. So, a big part of this is really having emotional intelligence. And I've yet to meet a CEO that is not working on their own self-awareness. And I see this in 3 components. One might be, hey, I know I'm not very patient. 2, it might be, boy, I know I'm not patient, but I know what effect that has on other people. They don't feel listened to. They don't feel respected. And then 3rd, do I have the ability to self-regulate and deliver an emotional response that's best for the team, not that satisfies pride or ego? So that's what we need to be working on, because these soft skills are the hard skills that are in such high demand. Most of the jobs out there, you can train, you can learn those jobs, but these are skills that make a difference in the ability to influence others, to serve others. So these are some great skills, and I'm going to put those in the chat as well for your future reference. Again, all this work is via Dan Goleman, and his book is pictured up there, Emotional Intelligence. And there's since been a lot of different things that have been written on this. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Jahari window. And you can look this up, Jahari, Johari window. And this is about people that, if you're sitting there going, I wonder how good my emotional intelligence is. Well, one of the ways to find out if it's good is to get feedback from other people, to expose blind spots. Maybe I didn't know I was impatient and that people felt disrespected unless I ask. But you know what? Here's the thing. If you ask people for feedback, most of the time they'll bristle. They don't want to give you feedback because they're afraid you're going to be defensive and they don't want to be put in a position of judgment. However, if you think of it as feed forward, you might have more success. So picture this. I go to a trusted colleague and I say, hey, it's come to my attention that I'm impatient. I could be a better listener. What suggestions do you have for me to become a better listener? They give me advice. Everybody loves to give advice. I say nothing except thank you. Because if I say anything more than that, if I act defensive or if I say, well, what about this? They're going to say, I'm done. I'm not ever going to give you feedback again. So it's really important that you do that. And you might start out with one or two trusted people, and you might expand that to some of the people that maybe you consider difficult. Because again, everybody likes to give advice. And the only way to know if you're actually making progress in some of these areas is to get feedback, or in this phrase, feed forward. And as you can see, if you look closely at the Jahari window, there's lots of ways that we can expose blind spots. And a lot of that is being open and honest with people. It's also being vulnerable. And it's easy to be vulnerable if you have confidence. It's really difficult to be vulnerable if you're insecure about some things. So again, if that's an issue, then that's something that you can bring up. So you're probably wondering, well, this is all great, Jan, but how does this tie into what should I do with my career? Well, when you talk about your career, I don't care if you're going to be a solopreneur. You are not going to be successful if you are not serving other people, whether directly or indirectly. Work we do is to the benefit of other human beings. Even if we're an artist, we want people to enjoy our music, our art, or whatever that might be, the creative process. We have to serve other people. And the best way is to know what problems and challenges and issues they have, because serving them means making their life better. When we go to an interview, it's not about, boy, I'm going to, here's all my things and here's what I want. It's about, tell me about your problems. Tell me about the challenges of this. How are you serving other people? How are you making their lives better? How might I contribute to that noble pursuit, that greater goal? So, one of the things to keep in mind, because when we're interviewing, we're trying to see if there's a fit between what we want and what they want. And this is a study going back all the way to 1968. And it's a good one about how we're motivated, we humans. And at the top of this chart are things that are intrinsic motivators. They're the things that get us out of bed in the morning. Achievement, recognition, the work itself, having responsibility, getting promoted, learning and growing. And then there's all the things down here that can only demotivate. They've got to be good, but they're not going to get us out of bed in the morning. Like our relationship with our boss, company policy, pay, incentives, all those things that we think are at the top of the heap. They're important. They can demotivate you, but they're not going to get you out of bed in the morning. They've got to be equitable. But as you work with people, you realize achievement, recognition, the work itself. We want to be valued. We want praise and recognition. We want please and thank yous. And everybody else does too. And this all goes back to emotional intelligence, the things, whether you're in a position or you're interviewing for a position. These are really important attributes to have. So the next thing that I really recommend in trying to figure out what you're going to do with your career is journaling. Now, I lead expeditions with top executives and military veterans who are transitioning out of the service. And they are always looking at slowing down to speed up. And what we're trying to do with them is to get them to journal. We'll put them in a solo challenge that's about 3 hours, and we'll ask them, hey, what did you learn? What are you grateful for? Rate your day. And what's the single priority for tomorrow? And what we're looking for is patterns. And we're looking for people to take personal responsibility for their own self-development. So, it's been said that, journaling is one of the greatest things that you can do. And in fact, a couple of quotes here. I write because I don't know what I think until I read what I say. Or what Ernest Hemingway said, write hard and clear about what hurts. And if you think about it, if I go back to the other, where we're at, what did you learn? That's over time, you're going to determine, what am I focused on? What am I curious about consistently? What interests me? Second, what are you grateful for? This is about being optimistic and positive and basically a little bit of the glass is half full. And then we can rate our day. And if you've got a bunch of consistently good days or consistently bad days, well, what happened? What's the pattern? What do you need? What do you need to change? And then what's the single greatest priority for tomorrow? And if that priority is the same every day, and you're not making progress, you've got to really look at, what is preventing you from making progress toward that. So again, I'm a huge advocate of using a journal as your own professional development exercise and going forward. Now, we had the opportunity at the beginning of the pandemic to interview Simon Sinek, who many of you probably have heard about. His TED Talk is, I think, the number one or number two TED Talk listened to of all time on the power of why. And if you remember, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. Well, here's what he was saying when we interviewed him. I'm going to go ahead and play a snippet of that. Here we go.
It's the journey. It's the journey. It's the journey. It's not the destination. The destination is what motivates us. And it's like all men are created equal. It's like, I have a dream that one day little black children will hold hands with little white children on the playground. Like it's the destination that inspires us and drives us, but we'll never actually get there. We will. It's the journey. It's the journey. It's the journey. It's not the destination. The destination is what motivates us. And it's like all men are created equal. It's like, I have a dream that one day little black children will hold hands with little white children on the playground. Like it's the destination that inspires us and drives us, but we'll never actually get there. We will not achieve Martin Luther King's dream. We will not achieve the ideal that was laid out for us in our Declaration of Independence, but we will die trying. And every milestone that we pass makes us feel like we're getting closer, and we can see that target get closer, and that's what gives our lives and our work meaning. But it's the journey where the joy comes from. It's the camaraderie. It's looking to the person to the left of you and looking to the person to the right of you, knowing that you're on this journey with someone else.
So Simon is just so right. It is a journey, and it's sort of that description that there is no there. As far as again, everybody's in a form of transition. It doesn't matter if they're the CEO. There's something else that they're in the process of pursuing, and I think it's a reminder that we need to enjoy the ride along the way. And I've got 4 things, and I just put these in the chat for you to think about as far as post work. And the one I would love to hear from you is, what does success look like to you? But the purpose, for whose good do you serve? when you think about your career, before you think about, I want this job in this company doing this kind of work, I think it's important to think about, who are my people? Who are the people I most want to help? The people that I'm interested in. For me, it's senior executives and veterans. I mean, those are the people that I serve. What are the values you hold dear? What are the things that are really important to you? It might be autonomy. It might be purpose. It might be growth and development. But being clear about those and in what priority order they are will help you make big life and career decisions. When we don't know what to do, I often see it's because our values are competing. The self-awareness we've talked about, and that is really important to uncover your blind spots. And you have to do that through other people. You have to be vulnerable. And then the goals. Again, what does success look like to you today? And what I found during the pandemic, especially with older executives, is they start thinking about success not in terms of something in the future, but success is in something now. What does it mean to be happy and successful today? Not when I achieve X, get promoted to Y, earn, zeta. People aren't thinking that way. They're thinking, what does success look like today? And with that, we've seen, the Great Resignation, where people are really reevaluating what's important to them. And I think, the challenge is it's easy to think short term, hey, you only live once and I'm going to live. But then the other part is, I've got to balance that with long-term investment in myself, my career, my finances, whatever it might be. We've got to make that calculation. And, just like money compounds, our career compounds. If we take a 5-year break, it might have consequences. It might not, it might, but we have to evaluate, what that might be. So some homework for you on those life career questions. What I wanted to conclude with is, as you go through things, and especially adversity and tough things and situations where it didn't turn out well, it's easy to do the blame game. That company, that manager, those peers, those subordinates. But I think it's important to say to yourself, what was supposed to happen? It was supposed to be this way. What actually happened? What's the gap between what was supposed to, what did? And then you ask, why was there a difference? Why? And what happened that's worth sustaining? And what are things that are worth discarding and changing and adapting? And ultimately, what can I learn from this adversity, crisis, setback, failure, misfortune? And again, this goes back to Kim Cameron on the whole concept of being positively deviant. So what I'd like for you to do, I'm going to give you this as the really big homework, if you will. And I think, this is probably the most important part of the whole presentation today, is to take the time to figure out really what you value, what you hold dear. What are your values? There's a great website right there I've sent over to you, Mind Tools. And if you can get it down to 3 to 5 things in priority order, I think it's going to really help with your life decisions. And this is a hard exercise. It'll take a couple hours. You'll want to revisit for over a couple weeks. And then at the end, you'll say, yeah, this is me. It's autonomy, purposefulness, and mastery, whatever it might be. But you say, yeah, those are the things that are really important in that order. That's what I need to pursue, along with the question for whose good do you serve. Also in there is a development plan. I call it 29 hard questions in 5 easy steps. It's a really thorough way to evaluate what happened in the last year. What'd you learn from it? What are the goals this year? And it looks at the goals, not just career, but family, finances. I say faith, but faith is broad in the terms of spirituality, philosophy, whatever you believe. And then it goes back to fulfillment, which is your career, and then also fitness, which is health. Without your health, as we all know, you have nothing. The other part I've got in here is from the Daily Stoic, and it's on the benefits of journaling. And as I mentioned before, I think that is the most important thing you can do. And I'll leave you with a story that I heard, and this is from somebody that did officer professional development back when I was a young Army officer, and he gave all these stories, and he said at the end, he said, all great leaders have kept journals. And I remember thinking as a young man, boy, I want to be a great leader one day. And as of then, I started really, keeping a journal and keeping notes, and a lot of times I don't go back and read it, but just getting those thoughts down and seeing patterns really has helped me over my career. The other thing I'm going to leave with you is, a mention of the Leadership Podcast. It's a podcast I co-host, and we've had almost 300 guests on the show over the course of 5 years. Here's some of my favorites, and you can find these, and I'll put this in here on my website. And they're all about 40 minutes long. And I encourage you, whether it's my podcast or others, there's some great information out there. When we interview authors for 40 minutes, I feel like we get the essence of their book, that they've just written, or if that's the case. But we get a lot of information in 40 minutes, and it's all sort of 40 minutes to digest some really great insights from some great leaders. The other one I wanted to mention to you was I have 4 courses out on LinkedIn Learning on grit, managing in difficult times, managing temporary and contract employees, and leading the organization. And leading the organization is a really robust, comprehensive course, and I encourage you to take a look at that one for various stages of your career. Down here at the bottom are the books I've written, the TED Talk I've given, and the podcast. And I just want to thank you for being with me today. And hopefully the information that I put in this in the chat has been helpful. And I'm going to conclude by putting in a whole bunch of links that I've got. And if there's anything I can do to help you with your career, I encourage you to reach out. And I wish you the very best in your career, a great holiday season. And again, thank you for being here with me today. I very much appreciate it. Take care.